Welcome to tonight's presentation with bonus book launch, this first ever for this Monday Zoom. And so we have as our special guest composer Christopher Norton to discuss options for free choice repertoire for the intermediate range, so grade 4 to 5. So with no further ado, let's welcome Christopher Norton.
Thank you. So, by the way, this is a special day today as well because it's almost to the day 40 years since I wrote Microjazz, and in fact, my publishers are making today the sort of launch day for a complete repackage of the entire series, and indeed of all my books, but also of the release of two new books, Microjazz Collections 4 and 5, the first new Microjazz books for something like 35 years. It's amazing. And one of them happens to coincide with 4 and 5. So I'm actually talking about these brand new books which are out today, and also mentioning that they can be used as free choices. Of course, exams aren't immediate, so therefore they will definitely be available by the time you might be making choices. So this is quite an exciting day, in fact. So let's go on, and I'm going to start by talking about a piece from Connections 4. Now, Connections is this sort of follow-up series to Microjazz. It came out in 2007. It's actually 11 volumes. There's actually a preparatory book and then 10 books above it, all graded. And they're used very extensively by examination boards around the world already, particularly in Australia and in Canada, of course, and the Royal Conservatory in Canada, which extends into America. So I'm pretty sure that these will gradually appear on the ABRSM syllabus, but they're so new, it's almost too soon to actually be mentioning them to the IBRSM yet, but I'll mention them to you. So Connections 4 is around about grade 4, and I'm going to show you a piece which is incredibly popular with students, and I think it's going to be a performance by me of this piece coming up. So let's just have a look at this. Positively Swinging. It's a swing piece, obviously, and here's what it sounds like. Now, here's what it looks like, and one of the things that's interesting about my repertoire, and some of you will know this already because of Microjazz, is that you can have the student learning the piece for an exam, but you can also have a backing track with it, which is, and all the backing tracks are now available on all digital platforms. So it means that if you want to hear what the backing track sounds like and what it sounds like slowed down, you want to hear what the track sounds like with the piano or without, they're all available on everything, on Spotify, on Amazon, on Apple, and so on. This is Positively Swinging now. You can see the music and hear the backing track. So I'm going to show you another manifestation of the same piece here, just because I think students, when they get these pieces and get home, may sometimes think, oh, it's great if I can actually practice this separate hands with the band playing as well. Now, what's with the name? This is a swing piece and it's very positive. So it's a very simple reason why it's called Positively Swinging. And style-wise, it's in a big band style. As you can hear, the backing track really does feature a big band. It's in C major 4/4, which is nice to know. And it's a 12 bar. That's one of the things which is obvious when you hear it, but it's a 12 bar main theme which includes a little hook. And the little hook is followed by a variation of the theme which goes into the same hook, and that ends up building to the ending, which is quite exciting. So it's nice. It's a nice simple little structure, but it's got quite a lot of variety within it and lots of little sort of bluesy licks as well, which is nice for students to be able to learn. Learning the piece, the phrasing is incredibly specific. You notice that when you saw the music, there's a lot of variety of phrase lengths, and each individual phrase needs to be shaped well with a slight drop on the first note and a graceful rise of the wrist on the last note. So you can hear just from my playing on the piano that it needs to be all shaped within each phrase as well as shaped as a whole. Articulation is incredibly specific in this piece. Grace note should be played with the main note. That's an important point. When I play a grace note, I'm playing the grace note and the main note at the same time, like that. But I let the grace note go immediately. So you get that sound, not this. But so just a little stylistic point which does come up quite often. Staccato should be bounced off the bottom of the key. So I love the idea that you drop to the bottom of the key and bounce right off it again when you're playing staccato. Arm weight on accents. There's quite a lot of accents marked with the piece, especially at the end, and it's nice to use the weight of the arm to help play those. There's lots of specific changes of, not changes of position, but lots of specific fingerings which indicate changes of position. And all the fingerings in my books, if you like, are there for very specific reasons, and they are really worth looking at. Just make sure that you've got them. So look closely at the figure, especially the last two bars. It's quite tricky, the last two bars, just the fingering of those. Now, dynamics, there's a loudest point, which is double forte, I think, and the very quietest point is an MP. So there's quite a dynamic range within the piece as well. And there's an echo effect. So the opening is mezzo forte, and then it's got a mezzo piano answer. So there's nice little bits and pieces of detail in this piece, which mean it's got lots of teaching points as well as being a lot of fun to play. And the backing track is available on Superscore as well. And what I thought you might be interested, I've got an iPad sitting here. Now Superscore is available free on the iPad, and then you can download individual albums from it. And the whole Connections series is available on Superscore. And I'm just going to dial this up. Here we go. Hang on a minute. And Positively Swinging is on here somewhere. It's funny, isn't it, trying to find your own piece? So here we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sharing aspect of the piece. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can see you all again. And I'm going to share differently now. I just thought you'd be interested in seeing this because I can actually show you live, I believe. Let's look at this. Trust this computer, yes. Hang on a minute. I just need to make sure I am actually connected to the computer. Anyway, I won't worry about that too much. I'm just going to hold it up at the moment. I think that's probably an easier way to do it. Hang on. So new share, desktop 1. Here we go. You can now see my screen, and yeah, actually,
And you're a Mac user. You've passed the test.
I've passed the test. Okay, well, anyway, I'm just saying, if you look up Superscore on the Mac, I'm not going to try and set that up at the moment because I hadn't really intended doing that, so I'm not going to worry too much. But it's written here, it's available in Superscore, which gives you flexibility because you can actually, it turns your page, it's got backing tracks embedded in it and so on. So do look into that as well. So let's keep going. Now, what I wanted to talk about very briefly is there's another aspect to my music with both connections and with microjazz, and that is you can actually use them as a jumping off point for studying chords. And the chords of this piece, so you can tell looking at the screen, they're quite easy to play. So you can actually have the backing track playing and get the student to play the chords. And they do really like doing that. And of course, then you can actually use that as a springboard for chord playing as well. When I say chord playing, I mean chord playing with the track. So here's the entire chord chart of this piece. And so, and so on. So there's a little worksheet which I've done for this, which has got this chord chart on it. So you can actually have a look at how that works. But it's quite nice actually having the opportunity to do something of this kind, where you're playing something that isn't that hard, but is actually giving you a feeling what it's like to be playing like in a school jazz band or whatever it might be. So it's just an opportunity to kind of start exploring that whole world of chords. And oh, here it is with the track. Now it's hard to get sync on this with the piano, but you get the idea. So I'm sort of jamming along with that and playing the chords and doing some rhythmic things as well. Now you can use the C blues scale and actually improvise on this piece as well. And typical ideas of this are making a 2-bar idea up and repeat it up an octave. Making up a 2-bar idea and answer it. And so on. I did a 1-bar idea, but you get the idea. And then play more than one note. So thirds, fourths, fifths, sevenths, whatever. So you can actually play chords. Students often like to do that almost immediately. Try playing longer ideas. So here's a little longer idea. Okay, so again, because you've got the track and because you've got the structure, you can actually try this with students and even play the chords yourself. It's actually quite fun if you've got a piece and you can sort of play around with it as well, and so on. So try longer ideas, try continuous swung eighth notes, grace notes and pedal notes. These are all in your notes. So I'm just saying there's lots of fun things you can do with it. Now I'm going on to the world premiere, because this has never been showcased before, ever, because it's only out today, from Microjazz Collection 4, and this is what it looks like. These are the new Microjazz covers. Microjazz first appeared in examinations in 1987, and guess who? The ABRSM. They chose a piece from Microjazz, well, it was for grade 3, and another piece for grade 4 the same year, and they really caught on like wildfire. And these are harder than Microjazz Collections 1 to 3. This is Microjazz Collection 4. So you're starting in grade 4, 5 and going up to perhaps grade 6, 7 by the end of Microjazz Collection 5. So the piece I'm going to show you today is called The Coolest Guy in Town. It's rather a nice picture I've got here for you. There we go. And this is another kind of swing big band style piece, but it's a different flavor. So I'll just show you what it looks like. And we've made videos on my YouTube channel, which is called Christopher Microjazz. You'll find all of Connections are on there, but also the Microjazz Collections 4 and 5 are about to go up there as well. So this is one of the new videos. So this is the first time we've ever shown this on screen. The Coolest Guy. So you can tell that's a bit trickier. The music, by the way, can be got from boozy.com or christophernorton.com, so it's easy to get it. Uh, Now here is what the piece looks like, and again playing with the track. So I'll play you it once again, but this time you can follow the music and hear what we've done with the backing. Now, you'd be interested to hear the recording engineer I used for this is based in Harrogate. I noticed that someone here is at the University of York, so this is just down the road. Someone who I worked with when I lived in York for 10 years, and then in Leeds for 20 years. So I've got lots of connections in the north of England still, and my recording engineer, bass player and drummer actually as well on this piece is there. The guitar player was from Nashville, so it was a typical lockdown project where we used people from lots of different parts of the world on the backings. Now, the coolest guy in town is in a cool style and has a certain swagger. So again, like Positively Swinging, it's a fairly straightforward name, but that's why it's called the coolest guy in town. It's big band swing, I would call that. It's in B flat. You can tell it's quite a bit harder than Positively Swinging, but I still think it's kind of on the fringes of grade 5 when you actually analyze how difficult it is to play. And it's in B flat and 4/4. It's in a swung 12/8. And this is a different idea. This is an 8-bar introduction, and then an A section over a walking bass, a B section with a stride style piano. We've got that staccato and the umpire kind of effect in the left hand. And then the A theme comes back slightly varied with a coda that references back to the beginning. So again, quite an interesting structure. And I'm not really saying anything about improvising on that particular. I'm just sort of letting you know what these sound like at the moment. But tips for learning this piece: you need to play the left hand smoothly. There are varied legato right hand phrases and shape them well, but the left hand is legato all the way through, and there's little fingering things which help you to do that. But it's quite a interesting thing to try and get that left hand really smooth as it walks all over the place. Articulation: there's lots of staccato markings. Don't accent them, but treat them as short and final phrases. Now, I mentioned this because if you have a staccato mark at the end of a phrase in my music, I like the idea of you floating off it and not accenting it. So you have accents marked, but don't accent the last note of a phrase, and don't accent staccatos just because they're short. Fingering: lots of specific right-hand fingerings to check out, see why they're there. Dynamics: the piece starts off MF, and only crescendos to forte. And the only really loud thing is the very end, the FFZ at the bottom, which is a bottom B flat octave, which is a lot of fun to play as well. And the backing track is great fun to play with and can help develop your feel for the style. So I'm not talking about improvisation on this or chords, although the chords aren't hard, but I will be gradually putting material online, if you like, and on YouTube and so on, which will actually talk about chord playing and improvisation around these pieces as well. So now what I'm doing is I'm gradually getting harder in terms of the pieces. So the next thing I'm talking about is from Connections 5. So that's what that looks like. That's the book. And the piece is called Floating. This is very different. And what I thought was rather fun, I've got lots of performances of Connections pieces and of microjazz on YouTube. Not just on my side, but just on YouTube. But there's one particular performer who I think does a great job of my pieces right up to Connections 8, 9, and 10. and you're amazed when you see what he looks like. So here's a performance by a young performer. Look at this, of Floating from Connections 5.
I am playing Floating.
So I think he does a really nice job of that. I mean, he's sitting rather unusually, and he does in fact take his hands off before the pedals off. But these are little things which I, as a teacher, could point out. But he's captured the spirit of the piece very well, I think. So Floating with Track. Now here's what the piece looks like. It's an ostinato left hand, and it's almost Mozartian, you might say. And this is a little bit of this with track. I should point out that all the Connections books are available from 80dayspublishing.com in any country. So you can just look up 80dayspublishing.com, look for piano, and the Connections books are all listed there. And they come in your currency and are shipped in your country at local postage rates as well. So it makes them a little bit less expensive than if you were trying to get these books posted from Europe or whatever. So that's from Connections 5. It's called Floating because it's got this repeated left hand with a floating theme above it, played with lots of pedal as well. And I thought our young player did very well in terms of pedal as well. And style, it's a semi-classical piece with a repeating left hand pattern of possibly Mozartian melody, where the harmonies are more pop than classical. So you might say it's a bit of a hybrid. F sharp minor, which is rather unusual, in 4/4. And it's a very long right-hand melody played 8 bars long and 8 bars, and then the same thing down an octave, fading away and slowing. So it's very much like a song structure, this one. And when you're learning the piece, the left hand needs to use legato pedaling, changing on the bar and half bar. So it's a good exercise in pedaling, and it definitely needs proper legato pedaling. And play the right hand as legato as you can, giving it a beautiful shape both within each phrase and in the piece as a whole. Use some arm weight to get a warm, rich tone. So useful things if you're teaching it. And keep the left hand murmuring away, I put it. In other words, the left hand, although it's continuous, shouldn't be dominating the right hand in any way. Fingering is either marking change of position or to make sure legato is maintained. So again, with my pieces, it's always worth checking out the fingering. And there's a change of finger on one note. We actually have the same note with two different fingerings. You're shifting perhaps from second finger to fifth or whatever. When you have a look at it, you'll be able to see where. Dynamics starts piano, then mezzo piano, then mezzo forte, never louder. So it is actually quite a gentle piece. And the backing track is nice to play along with, but the piece is really designed to be self-sufficient. You provide both the accompaniment and the melody. So it's a nice piece to play as a solo piece. It doesn't need backing track. The backing track just gives a nice, warm, enveloping sort of background if you're wanting to do it with the backing track. And that, of course, is available. The backing track is available on all digital platforms. And this is, as I said, from Connections 5. So let's move on now. The chords used in this piece, by the way, are very easy. F sharp minor, C sharp minor re, and D major 7. So you've actually got the same note at the top on all three chords, but that's all the chords there are. And so again, a good little chord study, and there's the chord chart. And again, your worksheet contains this chord chart. So students may really enjoy playing the backing track with this and just playing the chords with their left hand. So they get used to playing something with chords. So let's move on. Improvising, F sharp Mixolydian mode. This is lovely. So it's F sharp minor scale with a flat 7th. And if you have the backing track playing, you can play freely melodies using that particular scale. So I'm not going to try and do it at the moment. There's another picture of somebody floating, and if I play the track, I'm just going to play a little bit of the track. This is no piano on it. So you can tell it's lovely to just play freely on that, and they even say to a student, don't even think about what you're doing timing wise, just play freely and rhapsodically and see what comes out. So, and now here's something else from Microjazz Collection 4, which is this brand new book, and again this is a world premiere. So here comes the next one. This is called A Day Like Today. This is the first piece in the book, and it's just a very sort of positive, upbeat piece, if you like, in jazz style. So here's what this sounds like. And it's one of the new videos again, which are all on YouTube. Now what I'm going to do now is show you the music and show you it with the track. This is a very straightforward bit. So again, a very attractive piece to play, and probably I would say about grade 5. So we're looking at that kind of region. This is very much a jazzy popular song style. So Today Like Today is like a song title. It could have lyrics. My wife's a very fine lyricist actually, and I'm quite surprised she hasn't actually tried to put words to it already. It's in a popular style and swing style with jazzy chords. E flat major, which is already kind of getting into slightly more kind of not extreme keys, but different from what some of the pieces students would have come across in this style. The melody is 18 bars long as repeated, so it's a very long melody as well, which is rather nice. Learning the piece, phrases written. There are lots of slurs of variable length, but also tenuto markings. Yada dee 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 dee, like you're a sax player or well, or a trumpet player or whatever. So it is like a woodwind melody in some ways. And articulation, drop on the first note of a phrase and come off gracefully on the last note. I'm always saying that, but this piece is particularly like that, where you slightly drop on that first note and then be floating off the last note of the phrase. Fingering is always there for a reason. Dynamics goes from all the way from forte to piano with things in between as well. And the backing track is lovely to play with and use it for style reasons as well as for timing. So now, just mentioning the chords of this, if I just play these on the piano here, and then, so you can tell they're very jazzy chords and but not hard to play, but I have listed them on your worksheet. So for those of you interested in sort of exploring the idea of having a piece for an examination, but also exploring the chords of it, this is a great example. And the chord chart for this looks like this. It's actually slightly more like a chord chart you get for a school jazz band, if you like. What's rather nice is it's got a lot of specific accents in it. And just to play you a snippet of the backing track, so this is what this sounds like without the piano. Accents. So all those backing tracks are available on all digital platforms for these new microjazz collections. That's from 4. There are 2 collections, of course, 4 and 5, but I'm particularly talking about 4 today. Now we're going to connection 6, and these are all getting more tricky. And this is a particularly amazing piece called Rocker. I've heard this played quite a lot by students, and they love it. But it is quite a sort of it's a concept, if you like. And this is what it sounds like. So here's Rocker and I'm going to play this with track straight away because it's very much a kind of style that suits having a track. So that's very dramatic, played with the track, and I've heard some great performances live by students of that. This is a rock style piece, and my wife actually thinks I'm an old rocker, so in fact, that's why it's called Rocker. It's not about a rocking chair, it's about an old guy who likes rock. Driving funky rock style this piece is in, with 16th note syncopation feature. So it's getting closer to the jingo from the Rock Preludes, which some of you may have done for grade 8. And again, this is probably heading for grade 5, 6 in terms of difficulty, but it's tricky in terms of rhythm, of course. Key, E minor, 4/4. This is an 8-bar theme followed by a second idea, which quickly builds and repeated down an octave. Then a very syncopated idea, the doom to doom to doom to doom to that continues the inexorable build. So the piece builds all the way through to the end. And I've seen students actually almost stand up on the last chords because they're so excited at doing this dramatic ending. And of course, audiences love it. Learning this piece, it's incredibly specific phrasing-wise. Make sure you do the right hand exactly as written throughout. Articulation, staccato, single notes, slurs, ending, staccato, accents at the beginning of a phrase. There's a huge variety of articulation in this piece. Fingering, there's lots of useful fingering, right hand only. The left hand is pretty much an ostinato, so you don't really need to worry about the left hand, but the right hand is very specifically fingered. Dynamics starts in MF and continues building all the way through of waves and continue building until bar 24. And the restatement drops slightly to forte but builds to a dramatic ending. And the backing track is tricky to play with but worth persevering with. It's a funk, 16th note style with lots of delicious syncopation from the band. So I'm coming now to the chords of this piece. Now these are not very complicated, but they're quite fun. So E minor, C, A, E minor for G, D very sharp, B 7 with a sharp 5th, and B7 with a sharp 9th. So again, this is getting closer to kind of funk, if you like, in terms of chords than it is jazz. The chord chart looks like this. I've got that in your worksheet, and there's a couple of very specific rhythms. One of the ones which is fun is bar 8. And the very end. So you've got very specific rhythmic things happening in the chord chart as well, which is a very good exercise for students to do. So let's move on. And this is the final piece I'm looking at is also from Microjazz Collection 4, and it's called, you'll be pleased to hear, Back at You Bach, and it's actually a Baroque style piece. And I don't know why I did this, but I do like sometimes writing pieces which are slightly kind of in a genre, and this is very much one. And here's the video of this, Back at You Bach. I think you'll be interested to hear this for an own choice for examinations. So that's different, isn't it? And here's what it looks like. No, I'm not going to show what it looks like here. I'm going to talk about why it's called that. It's a piece in a Baroque style with certain more modern twists, as you heard. And it's like an Arezzo style 3-part invention. Quite a lot of the time it's in three distinct parts. C minor 4/4, and it's variations over a ground bass, 3 times through the same chords with different variations above. Then in the piece, long legato phrases in both hands. You need to bring out the contrapuntal nature of the writing. Articulation is basically always legato, but each phrase should be well shaped. Fingering is marked as very useful and very helpful, I think. Dynamics starts mezzo forte down to mezzo piano, and then a stronger end of the section. This is more or less mirrored in the following section, so 3 times through the same dramatic dynamic shape. And the backing track is gentle and nice to play with. Try playing it through speakers. So that's available from ChristopherNorton.com, the Connections series, including the ones I mentioned today, are all available from 80dayspublishing.com. If after this you look it up, you'll discover it's a very interesting site. We've got music for piano duet for 3 people at 1 piano, for 4 people at 2 pianos, and also quite a lot of guitar music and quite a lot of music for harp. So it's an interesting little catalogue, and it's my own little publishing venture. So you may be interested to look at that. And the microjazz collections, sorry, not collections, microjazz 4 and 5, and I've talked about 4 today, are available from ChristopherNorton.com as of today. And here's a brand new publicity photo of me. So this is taken only last week. So that's what I look like now. So that's it really. I'm coming back to say hello. Hello, Peter. Hello, Crystal. Hello, etc., etc. So if anybody's got any questions, observations, or whatever, this is perhaps the time to do it, because I've finished in good time, I think, haven't I?
Yes, this is maybe a record.
Cheeky.
I have something to say and to remind
Yeah.
everyone in the group that we have the Christmas concert coming up, and everyone is welcome to record a Christmas carol. And while I was going through my box of books today, I stumbled across this.
Yes.
So, the Christmas collection of microjazz. Oh, Peter stumbled across it apparently. I
And in
thought
fact,
maybe
I should
to
also I should also mention that is available on SuperScore. So
Ah.
the iPad app is the microjazz Christmas books are on there, and they're really fun to play with. Where you have the iPad at home, can actually use it as your backing band, and you can slow it down. You can also, one of the things that's amazing about SuperScore, it's liquid display, so you actually can tip it sideways, and the music redraws itself. You can make it really big, and suddenly you're only seeing 4 bars on the screen, and it turns the pages for you however big or small it is. So it's worth having a look at that as well. But thank you for mentioning that. And of course, Carol Jazz, I think I mentioned, no, did I mention that today? No, but Carol Jazz came out before Microjazz from Universe Edition. That's still available, and lots of people love it. They're improvisation on Christmas carols at about grade 6 to 8 level.
Well, just a hint for anybody who's looking for a carol for our concert that hasn't found one yet. That there's some pretty cool arrangements in there. I have a question, Mr. Norton. You've composed how many pieces so far in your life?
I don't know, thousands. Yeah, I
And
must stop.
out of all of those thousands, do you have a favorite or two?
One of my favorite pieces, which some of you will know, is called Country Song from the Rock Preludes collection. The Rock Preludes collection includes Jingo, which is on grade 8, but the Country Song is an absolute favorite of mine. Of those of you who got the book, you should look it up. He sometimes writes something. It's a bit like Keith Jarrett, I would say, if anything. And of course, the funny thing is, I do joke with my wife that on my tombstone it'll say composer of Strutton or Intercity Stomp. You know what I mean? There's certain pieces which every child in the world seems to gravitate towards. Usually, they've got a left hand which goes dum 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 dum. They always like things which have got a kind of stomping left hand bass. So it's impossible as a composer to know what's gonna catch on, but I've had my fair share of ones that have caught on. And in fact, I've got a funny story to tell you. Guitar players will understand this reference, and that is when I toured Australia many years ago, because I toured Australia a lot in the 80s, there used to sometimes be a sign in music stores saying, no Stairway to Heaven. Like they didn't want guitarists to come in and play Stairway to Heaven again, so they said no Stairway to Heaven. You can play whatever else you like, but don't do that. Well, after I was kind of a huge feature of the Australian Examination Board, I came in and noticed was stores saying no Intercity Stomp. We don't want kids coming in and just thumping that out very loud on one of our pianos. So anyway, so I was not quite banned, but I was heading in that direction, which was rather nice.
Illegal material there.
Exactly.
Well, does anybody have a question for Mr. Norton? You can either put in the chat. If you speak, you may end up on the live stream. So if you want to speak and not be on the live stream, just turn off your video. But any questions?
And have you put the worksheet into the chat?
So any own choice pieces for grade 7 and grade 8 so far for the next meeting? Because I'm interested to know for next year, because I'm planning to take piano next year. So any so far? Yeah. Next week, you can organize one.
Are you talking about pieces for the next grades up?
Yeah, 7 and 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going. That's my next presentation. Have we got a date for that yet, Sarah? Or have we not really kind of settled on that quite? Sarah? Oh, she's disappeared on me. I think we'll announce when I'm going to do that, but I have got that plan. Sorry, Sarah.
Am I back? I'm sorry, I don't know. I just lost connection for a second. Yes, I was going to say, Casey, this is planned.
Oh yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
interested for 29 because yeah, I'm interested because so that I can have a head start for next year.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
because I also want to be just like you. Yes, I was very fascinated by your songs and your presentation today. So I will try my best to play as much like you on my next YouTube videos.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll if you do, there's a good chance I'll feature you on my next presentation.
Yeah, bass instrument always very popular.
And,
I
where
yes,
are you based, Casey?
I'm based in Singapore.
Singapore. Yes, I've been to Singapore many times. I really like it, particularly the pad thai. Street food that you can get in
Yeah,
Singapore is wonderful. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't see me going back there at the moment,
yeah,
anyway, it's nice to have the contact with Singapore and Malaysian students as well because
yeah,
I've toured there so many times.
yeah,
So yeah, everybody's clear, aren't they? There's three microjazz collections which have been used by the ABRSM quite a lot, the pieces in those. But these two new collections called 4 and 5 are harder than those. So they're halfway between the microjazz existing books and the preludes, I would say. So they're a nice bridging of the gap. So that's why talking about them as grade 4, 5, 6, 7 is ideal. And the next presentation I give, I'll be talking more about Microjazz Collection 5, which is actually getting towards grade 7, 8, in fact, in terms of difficulty. And Connections, of course, goes right up to we have 10 grades in Canada, so it actually goes up to grade 10. But that means, in maybe RSM terms, grade 8. So it just levels it slightly more gradually, if you like. But basically, it does go as hard as grade 8 for sure. And I'll be mentioning some of Connections 8, 9, and 10 in the next presentation as well. And I'm going to go and have a cup of coffee and some breakfast next because, in fact, it's now just coming up for 6 a.m. in Canada. But my wife and I do sometimes get up quite early, so it hasn't been too bad. But what time is it in Singapore, Casey?
It's 7 p. It's going to be 6:57 p.m. currently.
Yeah, so that's quite nice. Yeah, yeah. So I started this at 5 a.m. in Canada. It's amazing because of the clock's changing, but it's been fine.
It has been very special to think that we got the privilege of seeing the book launch first before anyone else in the world because nobody else is silly enough to be up at 5 a.m.
That's
So
true.
it's quite an honor. I guess on that note, there's no more questions in the chat, and I can't see any more on the live stream.
Well,
So
yeah. I'm, by the way, everybody knows this, don't you? I'm on YouTube, Christopher Microjazz, and do subscribe to that. It's free, and we're going to be updating all the time. And also, Christopher Norton Composer is my Facebook page. For those of you of my generation who are on Facebook, you may be interested to know that that's there, and that's updated every day pretty much. So I have lots of stuff from me and also stuff from students and teachers around the world. Great.
well, on that note, Christopher, thank you so much for sharing with us the some of the latest of your pieces and for inspiring us once again for so many options for own choice repertoire and this classical jazzy style of playing, which is, yeah, I always leave here so inspired and Peter leaves here ready to compose something else. So it's
Indeed.
and so on behalf of all of us and for those watching on the live stream, thank you once again so much for getting up this early so that you could share your wisdom with us
A pleasure.
and allow us to join in this book launch.
Yeah.
If you
Great.
want to unmute and thank Mr. Norton.
Thank you.